All right, well, greetings, everybody. Thanks for joining. Today is May 8th. Appreciate y'all joining. It's Thursday once again, and certainly you can record here. I'm John Singleton, of course, and you can find my content that's published in video series. Like to make them into categories. We have different groups of work that I do. One is focused more on using limited liability companies for managing financial risk. And then I have a section that deals with um, foreclosure and easements and using homeowners associations the way I describe. And then there's a section that deals with privacy. And then there's consumer debt collections. And then there's one on cryptographic currency. And I guess the most popular concern there is taxation. So then there's also entrepreneurship. So you'll find all these at aceofcoins.club. And then if you want to talk to me, you can schedule a time on my calendar at aceofcoins.com. That's the best way to get me on the calendar. And those calls, I mean, once you schedule a call with me, usually it turns into two or three, and I don't charge more for other follow-up calls. And many times I do work for you, like I might create a document or do some research for you to maybe answer a question that I wasn't able to finish answering during our call. Okay, so just so you know, it's a lot more than just a phone call. Yeah, appreciate that, Ryan. Yeah, appreciate that. So what I thought I'd bring up with tonight is something. So I want to make a point. We'll get to that on this evening. The point of let's just talk about a conspiracy. Now, this is a real conspiracy. It's a matter of public record, and the description of this conspiracy is published on the as an appendix to the congressional record. So let me just share with you what this looks like. And I did mention this before, I just never showed you the document. So here it is. You can see right there. This is now this is in the day. This 28 pages, okay, is an 8-part essay. That was read into the King 40 out of Montana. As you can see, this had to have been scanned. All right, there was no way to. It was old, right? It's from the 1940s. So this was scanned from the public record. You can go find it in the paper library if you wanted to. So it goes on for a long time, but look at the title: Steps Toward a British Union, a World State, and International Strife. So there was an international conspiracy. I don't know. I don't think it's. I think it's dead. But let's look at what it was. And this may answer some of your questions about our university system. Okay. So here, he's addressing the Speaker of the House, right? And I'm sorry if I'm reading this. I want to read it because I want this to be part of the transcript and I want it to be part of our conversation. He's saying to the Speaker, and he's reading this into the record, he's saying, in order that the American people may have a clearer understanding of those who over a period of years have been undermining this republic, in order to return it to the British Empire, I have inserted into the record a number of articles to prove this point. These articles are entitled Steps Toward a British Union, a World State, and International Strife. This is part one. And in this, I include a hope expressed by Mr. Andrew Carnegie in his book entitled Triumphant Democracy. In this, he expresses himself in this manner. Let men say what they will. I say that as surely as the sun in the heavens once shone upon Britain and America united, so surely is it one morning to rise, to shine upon, to greet again the reunited states, the British American Union. Now, Andrew Carnegie, you're probably familiar with him, right? A philanthropist, okay? But he was, a very successful businessman. I forget exactly what he did, but it says here, this statement is clear, and the organizations which Mr. Carnegie endowed have spent millions in order to bring this about. Now, I'm not going to keep on reading there, but the point is that this private money that Carnegie was so rich, he felt like, I guess, he needed to influence this kind of change. Now, he was not alone. Of course, there is a concerted effort, and I believe there's ongoing conspiracies in this vein. right now. But I believe that this effort here has failed. We'll get into that in just a second. But if you go on, you're going to see here where it was even expected that Canada would absorb the United States. They didn't want the United States to exist. Okay, that's been the case from the beginning. It's just that King George had to stop fighting in the revolution because he discovered that he was fighting his own money thanks to France. France was helping us with his money, so that's not very sustainable. So he had to quit. Uh, it would actually made sense to do that for him. You see here, it's 28 pages. Okay. And it just goes on from there. So there was every effort for this conspiracy to absorb the United States into becoming, let's say, a protectorate of the crown or under the dominion of the crown, or as it would have been today. Who is it? King Charles, right? King Charles II or something like that. So guess what, guys? It didn't work. And some of the events that took place throughout history since that time, let's just point at World War II. Okay, up until World War II, the British Navy was the dominant navy. It was the Navy. Okay, it was the most powerful navy in human history on the earth. And so after World War II, the United States demonstrated that it was. And then couple that with the Federal Reserve System. Now, we criticize the Federal Reserve System and the IRS. They have to come together. And I'm the first one to do that. So I don't think you're wrong in doing that. I'm just saying it serves a purpose. Okay, and I'll explain that in a second. But these systems allowed the United States to create its own money. Okay, so the Federal Reserve is a branch of, let's call it, the Bank of England, or it's a copy, and it allows it to just create money. And because of the people that were behind it, they made that work around the world. They kind of forced it onto the world. And so that gives our country a lot of power when it can create its own money and then force other countries to accept it. And yeah, maybe that's not nice, but these are nations between nations. They're not nations committing genocide, okay? They're not people exploiting people. These are nations dealing with nations, and that's what nations do. That's what they're supposed to do, right? They're not supposed to be polite. So anyways, so what we have is today, I guess it was today, the president announced the formation of a tariff treaty, I guess you call it, an agreement with the United Kingdom. Okay. The idea that before the British Crown, the United Kingdom, the idea was that it was going to absorb the United States, right? Where's that going to happen? It can't happen because the United States is very powerful. And so the United States had all the leverage and all the upper hand and went in to negotiate this deal with the United Kingdom. And if you look at the terms, if you look at enough news clips, you'll find what the terms are, and they're very favorable to the United States. They're for the United States because the United States does in fact have the upper hand, partly because it has all these natural resources that we've been buying from other countries, and it has probably the biggest consumer base on the planet for now. That may change. All right. And so the Canadian economy, of course, does not have the ability to absorb the United States. It never did. So the Canadian economy has always been dependent upon the United States, or has grown dependent on the United States. They could have probably become more autonomous if the Canadians wanted that, but it was just as easy. And because of the logistical problems that the provinces had over the years, they were able to trade with the United States much more easily. So I guess that's just how it worked out, but that puts Canada in a weaker position. So this dispels the conspiracy. Although the conspiracy was real, let's just say it was real, it failed. The Canadian government relies heavily upon the US military for its protection, okay? And then you've got this tariff, right? So all these major factors come in and defeat this conspiracy. So I'm going to make my point here. The last thing on this list here is I want to explain the US tax system was favorable to real estate investors. Because think about it, government can't handle real estate. That's not its job. Its job is to manage people. Okay. It can't go and build a structure. It can't work that out. I mean, I'm sure we can have an office that does that. It can oversee a job, it can license a job, it can put codes and restrictions on the building for public safety and things of that nature. That's what we want it to do. But the tax code itself creates multimillionaire real estate investors, multi-billionaire real estate investors that come back into sometimes take their time out of their private business and come into public service and clean up the mess. And that's what we're seeing right now. And if you go back and look at this conspiracy, no question, it was a conspiracy and it's failed. So that's been going on in the background. We understand how much corruption there is. I mean, we're looking at what? I think it was Jim and I were talking about this the other day. It was like $36 trillion of, what do they call it? Gross domestic product, right? And then I was saying, there's got to be $1 trillion of waste. And he said, no, it's more like 12. Yeah, I think you're right, Jim. I think there's about $12 trillion of waste. So all that's happening in the background while you're trying to live your life. And so I know, and I'm there too. I'm always paying attention to, how evil the manipulators of the silver price, how they are, it's not fair. Silver should be $900 an ounce. What about my holdings in my vault? I want to be rich, And so, we have a tendency to get caught up in all these little things that we can complain about. But I just wanted to share with you this enormous conspiracy that failed in the background of you living your life without even knowing about it. And so how many of these things that are going on in your background that you don't know about? And then what about the things in the foreground that you're maybe worried about? And I talked to so many of you that you're making decisions or not making decisions based upon what you think is going to happen in the future to the stock market or something. And you're missing out on opportunities, all right? Or you're making the wrong decisions because you're speculating on what may happen because you're afraid of it or something. And I'm there, I've done that too. But I just want to make the point that just go do the thing. Just like the other day, someone asked me about, he used the AI and he asked about, the AI was telling him that there is no holding that says that a private citizen was able to advance a cause of action under the False Claims Act. Well, he asked a limited question that I didn't want to tell him that, but he asked a limited question, which I'm sure the answer was truthful, but it wasn't the end all. And so my response to him was file the case. Just go do it. So I don't know, Ray, have you ever seen that before? Did I show you something new?
Yeah, well, actually, this subject right here, you brought it up a couple of weeks ago. Don't you remember we
Yep,
talked
I
about it? And
did
there were some
mention, yeah.
documents I can't remember,
Yep.
but I read them. Now, what Carnegie said, what Carnegie, he was a steel industry.
Okay,
He
steel, right.
was famous from West Pennsylvania. He developed the whole iron work and steel industry,
Yeah.
and then he also created all these endowments and all, and influenced universities. Like there's a university, Carnegie Mellon, and all. But in that article, it was talking about how he was opposed by a different agenda, and it was this new world order agenda actually
Yep.
that opposed and
Ah,
actually killed this agenda.
okay. Yeah, that would make sense. So yeah, there are still conspiracies out there. So however this one died, it died. But my point again is don't let that stop you. And yeah, there are conspiracies out there. Just live your life, make your plans. You can go and so I'm gonna go on a couple of terms here because like I said, this conversation I think is gonna meander and I just want to talk our language here a little bit and give you something the way to look at this. So when you get a job somewhere and there's nothing wrong with that, I'll do it. I'll do it to this day. I've done it before. I like working for people. Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes you learn something. But remember that you're discounting your labor. So what's involved with that? So let's say the example of being a cashier at a grocery store. Well, maybe I don't want to be a cashier at a grocery store, but I still want to be a cashier and I don't want to discount my labor. Well, good luck with that. You can't just be a cashier, right? You have to be working for somebody who's selling retail products, right? Then you can be a cashier. Well, that person is effectively marketing you. So sometimes you have to be an employee to do your job. Other times you don't have to be. You can sometimes you do have to discount your labor. That's why I think it's a great idea for the younger people to have these types of jobs so they can learn. They can learn how to talk to people, they can learn how to follow rules and be accountable for what they do and this sort of thing and work for nothing and still get things done. You know, work hard. I loved it when I worked hard and broke even because I knew that that wasn't going to always be true. But I love working hard, like 18 hours a day, working so hard that I was sick. I love it. I don't do that again though, I don't think. But so anyways, let's see here. All right. Anyways, so that's what I was thinking is you know, it's important to just don't get wrapped up in watching all the news and stuff and trying to figure out when silver is going to be $900 an ounce and you know when they're going to stop this corruption and that this is going to happen and what about the tariffs and this and it doesn't matter. What matters is to stay focused on something that makes you happy. First, you got your job, and so okay, you have a job, and yeah, you understand it's just kind of labor, but that doesn't mean you need to stop there. And for many people, they have a job and they're making enough money to pay the bills and then that's good and that's I guess that's where we kind of rest. I mean, my parents did that because that's what kind of economy we're in. But today we have a situation where you can be selling goods at Walmart while you're actually working there. I mean, you could be working in the back room as a stock person and still selling goods, and then you can go on vacation and still be selling goods at Walmart because you have technology. We should all be doing these things, you know. Just like in my neighborhood, I got to do this. There's an antique store over here, and this guy, it's a nice old house. It's like over 100 years old, and it's got this beautiful camphor tree from China growing up over it. It's so amazing, and he wants to sell it. And I could tell when I walked through the whole thing, it's not an antique shop. The guy's a hoarder. He just kept everything forever. And then he decided one day to put an antique store sign on the front, you know. So, and he even admitted to me that he lived there for a while, you know. And so he just has to sell it. So I'm thinking, man, I can get a pretty good smoking deal on this. So this is how I think of things, right? We're just going there for entertainment, but when he starts telling me all this stuff, I'm thinking to myself, man, I could just make an offer. Now, I haven't done that yet. I'm I'm not afraid to make an offer, but I'm still considering how I want to market that because I don't want to own it, maybe, but I would rather buy it and organize its refurbishment than sell it. And the market I'm looking at, this I'm thinking, and I'm just sharing with you, what I'm looking at is there are similar structures on that street, and they're restored homes and they're beautiful and they're vacant, but they would be used for office space. Now, the one right next to it is being used for a doctor's office. So the one right next to it after that is empty, and the one after that is empty, but it's beautiful. They just did it, a new metal roof and all this stuff. So I'm thinking it'll be something like that, office space, right? So I'm thinking, all right, who would my tenant be, or who could I sell it to? Maybe it's going to be a law firm or something like that, right? So, anyways, my point there is that your thinking should be like this, and then you need to take action. Now, this is where I am. Okay, I need to take action on this. I need to go and make an offer. Now, I can go make an offer to the guy right now, and I can probably get him to sign a contract. But what I would like to do is go through a real estate agent, which I've already established a relationship with one in my town. So I could just go to her and say, hey, would you help me with this deal? I'm sure she'd be happy to. And then what I'd end up doing is I would probably get the property under contract so that he can't sell it. He has to deal with me, or that anyone who comes in and make an offer, I would be the first person that person would have to talk to, okay? Which I would hope for. I want that. Now I have the right to sell the property, right? And I'm not even a licensed real estate agent because I have the contract written a certain way. That allows me time to go look for the player, you know, someone, maybe I need to talk to the other antique shops, the real ones, and see if they want to come and make a smoking deal on his you know, his pile of junk. Because probably half of that needs to be chucked out. I didn't tell the guy that. Felt bad. You know. But
John,
anyways,
what you were talking about, on thinking, how you think, and it's totally true because consciousness creates reality. And the battle is for our thoughts. I watched an interesting interview the other week, and it was a guy that was a SEAL that was taken into the CIA because he had extrasensory perceptions. They brought him into that remote viewing, remote influencing.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
And the government knows this, and that's why TV was created. And everything is designed to push what you were talking about a moment ago, fear and doubt. So fear and
Right.
doubt clouds your judgment where you can't do things like you're talking about, what's going to happen with the silver market, what's going to happen with crypto, et cetera.
Yeah.
And the battle was there because, and the government knows it. So on the COVID, for example, if you get enough people to believe something, that there's a disaster coming, it will come. It will
Yeah.
manifest, it will create reality. And so they know that. He was in a program with top security clearance. They were creating what called Jedi Warriors. He was on the mental side. He was over Tomahawk missile hits, and then there was
Yeah.
some on the physical. Now listen to this. He was talking about they put a chip. He already had extrasensory perception. They put a chip in his arm, which increased his powers 100% or 1,000.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
But then they court-martialed him because he wouldn't hit some targets with the Tomahawk missiles. Now they did the other
Oh,
side. They put chips in guys' arms to develop the physical side,
okay.
where I could have full battle pack, backpacks, full guns, ammo, and jump an 8 foot fence running. Okay, so when he got court-martialed, they pulled the chip out. He lost his power, but then
Okay.
he found out later. Guess what? The chip wasn't nothing. It was
Yeah.
a piece of metal. They had him convinced it gave him power. He had the power already,
Yeah.
and so
Right.
did
It's
the
all
other
about the
guys.
influence. Look at the
Yeah,
reality. Yeah. Look at reality. Now, I'm the same person now. I might get disconnected here and I'll come right back. So I noticed that was happening last week. But I'm
yeah.
the same person. Like when I'm telling you all this stuff, that's mixed in with my fears of I'll fail, I'll fail, I'll fail. And I ignore those. I know it. I might, but I'm ignore that because look down the street. If all the people that built those other structures acted on, I think I'll fail, then they wouldn't be there. It'd just be a bunch of trees. So somebody else did it before me. That means I can do it. At least that much.
It's
So
scriptural.
as it turns out, I just noticed, can you guys see this? Ah, my agent's card. I just found it just now as we're talking. So this is what I do. So sometimes I just go talk, I just go stop at a business and I just strike up a conversation, or sometimes I might just go buy somebody lunch and just they'll remember me. And I might need to call on them later and they'll do me a favor. I don't expect it, but in this case, she might get a smoking commission if we work something out. So for that, what I will do is I'll ask her to help me write an offer to buy the property. And then my idea is that I want to sell it. So I acquire the property, the right to sell the property or the right to buy the property with an option to do so. I'm not going to do it today. I might give myself a 90-day option. And after talking to the owner, he might just say, okay, because I don't think here's why I'm thinking this is a great opportunity for me is because first of all, it's a dirt heap. It has so much deferred maintenance, and the guy is not serious about cleaning it up and selling it. I talked to him at length for like an hour. He is not, he wants to hold on to everything. So because of that, it ain't going anywhere until he dies. And I'd rather not get it out of probate. I'm sharing this story with you because I'm I'm living my life. I'm just going about doing things and I'm thinking I could pick up another $100,000 if I do this right in a period of 6 months. And maybe I can build some relationships with other people. Maybe I'm going to establish a nice relationship with some antique shops. Maybe, there's all kinds of things that can come of that. Even if I failed on that particular thing, I can do it. So, again, my point is that yeah, there's a lot of crap going on, and you're always hearing this. You could fail, and yeah, you're probably right, but you got to move forward and do something. And so it could be as simple as like I've spoken to so many of you, where you're afraid to even set up a company or use it. Like I'll set up the company for you and give you all the instruction and coach you on it, and then you call me like 6 months later and say, I didn't do anything with that company. And so my thinking is, well, you may have missed out on some opportunities. Um, I just opened a company the other day for the sole purpose of receiving um, commissions to act as an escrow agent. That's not what I do, but I can do it. Now I can do it. Why? Because I wrote the contract for doing it and I sold it to the people that want to do it. And I explained what I can do for them because I understand what to do and they like it. They like it better than the regular escrow people, the stupid attorneys that don't know anything about entrepreneurship. So I'm competing with lawyers who are running an escrow when I can just run escrow and do something really cool that the investor wants. I just happen to be in that situation. So I just went and set up a whole new bank account. So it's just things like that that I want to just share with you. that don't hold back on have an idea and try to use it, try to act on it, or get people to help you act on it. I mean, really, I know, I guess I'm really talking about entrepreneurship here. I like to avoid the pedantic discussion on setting up LLCs. You guys know all that stuff. But I hope this discussion is what I'm trying to convey to you, that you can just go out there and supplement your income, let's just say, or just enrich your life, just doing things that, we can use technology that we don't, in a way now that it doesn't take up a lot of our time to do, like where it would have taken 10 hours a week because we have technology. I just ordered an NVIDIA device. Now these guys are on back order. I guess everybody wants one. NVIDIA has this really cool AI device. So with this AI, I'm going to build a prompt that allows anyone to ask me questions and get the answer I would give you, and also ask me to create a document for you and do it exactly the way I would do it. Because I'm going to take 32 years of my work and educate the AI module. And I'm going to make it available online. That's just one example. So now, and I'll make sure it will give the answer that I would give. I have some tests and all that stuff. So that's coming. Hopefully it's going to be this year. I'm still waiting for the device. So I'm just sharing with you something, an insider on, my inner office. I'm telling you, this is how I think all day long. Even my wife was telling me the other night, she's like, you think too much. Stop. You need to go to sleep, you know? And it's true, but I love it, And so I figure if yes, am I going to be a clone? If I wake up at 2 o'clock and I can't go back to sleep, which is normal, I'll just get up and start working until I'm exhausted, and then I go back to sleep. I just give in. I'm not going to try to fight staying asleep. So for some reason, I need to get up and do stuff. So anyways, go with it sometimes, but you can have fun with this stuff. And I just, I encourage you to have a little boldness, not that you don't already, but try new things and be uncomfortable. Right, Ray? You know what that's like, man. I know you.
Yeah.
You gotta,
What you're
yeah.
sharing tonight too makes me think of a book I read called As a Man Thinketh. And it was one part, you know what it says? It says, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
I love that one. Yeah, so true.
Yeah, it's right
It's
on
so
point.
true. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, always
Yeah.
been uncomfortable. I don't know if I told you guys this story, and I'm this. I'll just tell you. You can stop me. But when I was in, let's see, I worked at IBM, and it was a really cushy job. I made good. I was getting paid like 3 times more than I should have, but that's what IBM did back then. And I did that job for a few years, and after 2 years, I thought, this job is kind of fake, and probably IBM's going to get rid of it, which it did out like 2 years after I left. And all the people that were in my office, I was the first one in that job. It was a new office that IBM created. And so all the people around me were people I had trained. So for me to say to them, hey guys, I'm leaving next year, they thought I was crazy. But um, I left, and I gave my car away to the lady I was renting from. I rented a 1 bedroom from her house. So I gave her my car, which she couldn't drive. So I just gave it to her so she could sell it and keep the money. So I gave the car away, and I saved like $3,000, and I just went to Arizona, and I found a place to stay, and I I bought a mountain bike, and then I enrolled at the local university to learn mountain biking in the mountains. And then I didn't know what to do after that. Well, my point there was I was very comfortable where I was, and I didn't want to be pushed into an uncomfortable situation by someone else. So I chose to cut it off and do it myself, put myself in an uncomfortable position. And everybody thought I was crazy. And yeah, I'm probably crazy. This is an example, an extreme example of something I did when I was a lot younger. I was like maybe 22 years old. In fact, it helped me develop the kind of service I have right now. It actually kind of helped me led into this type of business that I'm in now. But it's I've always done things like that. I sometimes I practice pitching a baseball with my left hand. I'm very good at playing basketball left-handed, and tennis. Don't play me in tennis left-handed. I'm left-handed. I'm right-handed, but I play left-handed. So I'm very good at left-handed tennis and left-handed ping pong and all this stuff because I made myself that way because I like to do things that make me uncomfortable because after some point I'm better at it and I'm not as uncomfortable anymore. And then I move on to something else, but it teaches me all the time that I can just do it. I can always overcome it. So when I see a situation like this house that I've never bought before, like this situation, I have people that I can call that will help guide me through it. And likewise, you all do as well. Each of you have someone you can call, or you can find someone to call. And I don't know this woman, by the way. She's at Century 21. I've only worked with her one time. She would remember me. It's only been about 6 months since I've spoken with her. But you can do the same thing in your town also. So anyways, I want to share with that. I'm not saying you have to go out and be an entrepreneur, but I'm just saying there are some things that would enrich your life if you'll, don't be wrapped up enamored by all the conspiracies out there, because look at it this way. The people involved with their daily activity like Trump, it's exciting to watch what he's doing, but that's his life. Don't be so absorbed into what he's doing. You do what you're doing. You know, don't make the news cycle your life cycle.
Teresa's got a question, John.
Yeah, Teresa.
I just wanted to touch on I wanted to ask you how, I love everything you're saying, but how did 32 years ago, what made you do what you do where, you're kind of like, what do you call you?
Well, my my mother left my dad in 1985. My dad was quite abusive, and so she waited till we were old enough, and she had no intention of getting married again. But then a few years later, she ended up getting married to this very nice gentleman, and he was a smart guy. And I met him after maybe 6 years later, and he was started telling me about these conspiracies in the government. And I never paid attention to that stuff. I had no clue about any of that. I was more focused on mathematics and writing algorithms and stuff like that, computer programming. And so he starts telling me all this political stuff. And I found myself arguing with him, but he was a very intelligent man. And I finally caught myself one day and I thought, I need to go do some research and learn what he learned. And I asked him, where did you get this information? And he told me, and I went and I did the research myself. And it enraged me what I discovered. I mean, I was so glad that he was right, but it enraged me because I found even more than what he was telling me. And so I thought, well, what good is it to know this? What good is it? What am I going to talk to people about? Do they care what I think? Like I just showed you guys one of the things I discovered back then, which was this conspiracy to take back America. So I started looking at different aspects of this conspiracy, and I found myself looking at the money system. And so I had this passion of, wow, people are being exploited by it. And I was very motivated by that. So as I did the research on it, I felt like I could do X, Y, Z, and I could make money doing that. But I would only make money. And at the time, I had a full-time job. So I didn't need to do any of this work. And I didn't even think it would turn into a career. But I thought, I could make money and actually help people because I spent 7 hours reading something and I understand it way more than the person I just watched do this in court by himself. So if I give him a piece of paper that is effective based on what I just read, he didn't have to read all that. All he has to do is use the paper, then it's going to make his life better, in my opinion, and which is what I did. And it worked brilliantly. The people were like, oh, that was fantastic, And so I had all this good feedback and people were calling me and then their friends were calling me. And before I knew it, I had a large client. And that was the first time in my life I ever had clients.
Wow.
I never had that relationship. So it's always been exciting because I was, first of all, angry at what I discovered. Yeah. And then I felt frustrated because I started telling people, I was like, hey, you'll never guess what happened, and the people were like, so, Kennedy was assassinated, so, but then I realized, okay, I don't need to tell people that stuff, but they do have serious problems. And if I can describe those problems for those people, they will say, aha, you understand. And then I can say, well, consider doing this thing here. And so that really makes me happy that I can do that and get the results. And I promise myself, as long as I can solve a problem, I'll do it. I won't act like an attorney billing by the hour because that says you don't know what you're doing for the most part, not always. And this, so I had a set of rules that I started following, and it worked out great. And one thing led to another. So it became, it was a passion, but now it's a passion that I like to, it fulfills my desire to help people, but it does make a lot of money, and it turns me into somewhat of an activist. And I
Okay.
like that. It feels good.
Yeah. That's what I like, what I'm hearing. Because I mean, I got myself into the situation I'm in right now because my way to be an activist in what's going on in the world right now. And, so now I have to kind of, do the dance with the people I have to do the dance with. But it's interesting because I couldn't find, the right people. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do it myself.
Mhm.
It's not easy though. I'm gonna file myself. I'm gonna do it all myself. And I actually took a bookkeeping course because bookkeeping is, just plugging in numbers in QuickBooks. And it's a recession proof. I can take like three
Yeah.
small clients and make an extra, I don't know, $100,000 a year. So I like everything you're saying, John.
Yeah, that's a good point, Teresa. And also, if you like, for example, you studied accounting so you can do accounting work for people. Let's say you don't know anything about accounting, but you want to make money today in accounting, you can sell somebody else's accounting service. It's done all the time.
I don't get that.
Well, here's what I've done before. I have an accounting firm in India.
Okay.
I tell my client, this accounting firm can handle your accounting. And then you can either pay me or the accounting firm, but either way, I get a little piece of that business. And
Gotcha.
so now the client gets competent accounting. I don't have to learn it, but I just sell it. So that's a great example of like a professional service that everybody needs. Like you said, it's an inflation proof that it's a
Mhm.
great cash flow. And all you got to do is insert yourself into the sales process.
And
Everybody's,
get uncomfortable for a minute.
what's that?
And get uncomfortable. You said you got to get uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I
there
don't
is.
want to sit here and plug in
Yeah.
numbers, but if that's all it takes for maybe, I mean, not 40 hours a week, but you can do 11 hours a week and make good income.
You could do it that way. Sure. You could do the work yourself. Yeah, that's another way to do it. But sure, I mean, if you want to scale it, you would outsource it. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So, and yeah, you'll be a little uncomfortable. I mean, imagine if you I don't know, you patronize a bit. All of us have this, and you think, man, I would love to own this place, or at least I wonder how they do this job, or how do they do this work? Go talk to the owner and see if you can work for him, or see if you can bring him new clients. What would he pay you, or what kind of commit? What you can. There's all kinds of things you can do, but don't let all the noise distract you from things that are fun and could be lucrative.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
And being an
Thank you.
entrepreneur is a job. And I've heard people say before, many times, I've heard people say, well, once I make so much money, my problems will be solved. Okay, that might be true because money could solve your problems, but you'll just have a different set of problems. And if you have a large amount of money, you're really going to work for that. There is work to do to keep that money and use it properly.
Yeah.
Hey there, Hill H. How you doing?
Hey, appreciate the combo. I missed last week's call.
No.
So I have a question. Here's the scenario. Um, I have a member in my family. They lost their job a few months ago, and he was kind of already in a bad spot, but he was fine. But now he's got creditors calling him, and so I've been looking at the videos and saying, just you're just gonna have to let it go and just deal with it, accordingly. And I was just trying to share some of the tips, but one of the things he keeps asking me about is, well, they keep calling me. So should I call them back and tell them I can't pay, or just let it go? And that's my question.
So
It's like I don't really know how to what to say there.
let me heal most of his pain right now if you'll tell him this.
Yeah.
And this is for everybody too, but this is a very quick fix and you'll end the noise. All right. You're not going to pay him anymore. So make the decision. You're not going to pay Citibank, Discover,
Yeah, they're all credit cards. Mm-hmm.
or
Oh,
Amex. You're not going to pay the creditors anymore and then you take the last billing statement you got or collection letter and you send a letter back make it a business letter, put your return address on there, put its sending address, and make sure it goes to the right address, and let them know that you have a change of address. Now, your return address should be your new address. Now, here's how you get your new address. Pick an address that's a residential address that's out of your state. You can find this on the internet. You can use LoopNet and find an apartment complex. You can just search for apartment complexes pick a very populated city. All right. And you name the apartment complex or just the address of the apartment complex. You don't give a unit number. So it's a real residential address and you put your name there as if you just moved there. Now make sure it's in a different state. I like to pick North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, and Pennsylvania because they don't allow wage garnishments. So you send a letter back to each of the creditors, and by law, they're required to continue noticing you at that new address. There's a lot of good things that happen from that because you will not have lawyers in your town that will sue you. Those lawyers, if they're going to choose a lawyer, will be in another state and they'll be totally lost. They will not be able to serve process of anything if you're sued.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that'll
Yeah,
be
I was going through your videos, but this
all right.
I haven't heard of this one.
So that's one thing to do. And then from going forward, maybe use a fictitious name at that same address. And you should be doing that anyways. So no, don't use your legal name anymore. And so that's that's like 80% of it. Now, sometimes I do the opposite way, but I'm just saying that's a quick fix right there. And then on the phone calls, take the call and tell them they got the wrong party. Just say, this is, I don't know. Just say, what you do is say something like this. Oh my God. How many times am I getting calls for this guy? This is not his phone number. This is my phone number. And I'm not going to say it that way is because the person calling you, if it's a real live person, or even if it's AI calling you, that individual's first task is to make sure he's got the right party. And if he doesn't, he's going to check a box. He's going to use his mouse on his computer. And he's going to check a box in a profile he's got on his computer, a bunch of little check boxes. And one of the boxes states that it's not a right party contact. And so what happens is when he checks that box on the software and he closes the profile and goes on to the next collection call and you're gone, the software will take your phone number off of the rotation for the next day and you will not get a call again.
Right. He lets them all go to voicemail.
Well,
So
he's
he's
going to
not
still get the
answering
call.
calls.
He's going to keep on getting the calls and he's still going to be dodging the phone.
Yeah.
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 So do it that way and then they'll stop calling you.
Okay.
It's that simple. You don't have to argue with anybody. It's so simple.
Yeah.
So you just change your address and so it does many other things too, because it'll avoid lawsuits as well. Now you could still get sued or you could get sued in the other state, but it's not going to matter. It's not going to affect you. And you'll know possibly. It's not going to matter. It's a long story. I'm not going to tell you all of it, but basically.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell him.
Feel his pain, change of address, but
Yeah,
yes,
he's so freaked out right now. He's like, this is the worst.
Make the decision that it no longer serves you to pay. Now, if you borrowed money from grandma, pay her back, or if it's your doctor or something. But if it's Citibank, no, because their game is this is their game coming to fruition. They want you to not be able to pay. Because where does the bank, how does the bank recover if you don't pay?
Insurance. Write-off, insurance.
Yeah, they write it off.
Okay, so write-off. We all understand write-off. Okay, so it's a loss, right?
Yeah.
But where's that money coming from? I'll explain what that means. If the bank writes it off, it becomes a deduction, a business loss, right? Tax on this amount of money because I lost this amount of money. I want you to just remove that from my taxable income. That's what a deduction is, right?
Right.
But that's money to a corporation. That's not money to you and me. A deduction is actually cash to a company. That looks great on their books, is what I'm saying. But where does that come from? Why is the government able to do that?
They pass the debt on to everybody else.
Thank you.
Oh.
Everybody who files a 1040 is paying for that.
Wow.
That's how the system works. So,
oh boy.
Let's play it like a piano.
Got it. I appreciate it, John.
Okay, I
Thank
hope that
you.
helps. All right.
Thank you.
So yeah, you see, that's another example. There's a, there's a way to handle everything. And I have my unique dialed in way because I spent many, many thousands of hours figuring that out, what I just told her. That didn't come easy. It took many years to figure that out. And, but anyways, that's why I say you need to work with somebody. You don't need to reinvent the wheel of being how am I a business broker? Then how am I a real estate agent? Then how am I an accountant? And, you don't need to do all that stuff. How am I a plumber? Who do I call? Other people are out there waiting for work and you can always organize it. Okay. So, I mean, that's my talking about being an entrepreneur. And most of what I talk about is financial risk. And sometimes managing financial risk is about, part of being an entrepreneur is managing financial risk. I mean, I think that's where it came from, is helping people solve their own problems by, really just looking at them pragmatically. Like I just explained the other day, I look at the many situations like I'm just watching ants in an ant pile. It could be my money, but I don't look at it like I'm an insect or they're an insect, and just try to solve the problem, whatever it is. Yeah, last week's call I published recently, so you'll see there, what the heck was I talking about? Oh, the debt collection. Yeah, so that's another example. I mean, that's where someone gets sued, right? That's a very narrow area of expertise. And if she does what I'm suggesting, her friend does this, he will avoid that situation of having to be so smart about how to defend against a lawsuit. You don't even have to get into that. Then all he'll have to deal with is understand how to use his credit when it has a bad report, and then how to fix his credit or make it better. Not fix it, but make it better in spite of not paying the creditor. And by the way, paying a creditor does not fix your credit score. They're not allowed to do that. High car insurance. Okay. Well, with high car insurance, find out what you're being insured for. What's the risk? What's the big risk? Now look around. Maybe you're in a zip code where there's just happens to be a lot of people that are making insurance claims. Maybe you can't avoid it because of that. So find out where the rates are coming from. Okay. If you're looking at this is a great question, by the way. So if you want to find out how to lower your car insurance rates, find out what insurance needs you actually have. Go talk to your agent and just talk it through, because your agent will give you some options. And then ask your agent, if you compare my residential address where I live, my zip code, with adjacent ones, or maybe those in another county, for example, is it just because there's a higher risk here because people just drive carelessly or something, or they make more claims? So find out where the cost is coming from. The cost is going to be coming from a risk that the insurance company is trying to cover. That's where you start with, like, what's the risk? Always identify this. Does that help you a little bit? We can go on for an hour on that one. We can talk for more on that one. Does that help you though? All right. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that one. I'm not in all the stories, but be pragmatic and focus on things and work with people and have a plan, 1, 2, 3, and do your thing. And I'm that person too. Okay, I'm not different than you guys. Okay, I gotta call Sabrina. Once I call Sabrina, see, it makes me have to do something. And so what I'll ask her to do is, if either she'll help me or want me to write it for her, I want to make an offer on the property. Now, she's not going to like the way I want to make the offer, but I'll make it sound nice. Because, they want to close the deal they want to close the deal tomorrow and pay off their car, stuff like that, right? Ain't going to happen with me. I might close the deal in 6 months, but I'll let her know that I'm going to do most of the work. What?
Your offer is going to be based on terms.
Yeah, exactly. Always, always. I don't care if I'm sitting on, the cash to buy the property. I'm not going to use my cash. I'm going to use somebody else's cash. I'm going to start with the seller's cash. I'm going to start with the seller's time. So. Yeah, okay, so be careful about, you can, okay, I didn't want to tell you that on the car registration. Okay, you can dramatically change your insurance rates by simply changing your residency, but you're deceiving the insurance company. Now, come on. Come on, you want to be insured for the place you're driving mostly. Yeah, you can trick the system. but be careful.
John, I just brought that up though, because there's people that live in California and they have their car registered in South Dakota, and the insurance, I think, is separate from that because you don't have to have an address in South Dakota. There's 5 states that have free registration to where they'll take anybody's they'll process anyone's registration
yeah.
from anywhere.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I was
Yeah,
just
know.
bringing
Yeah.
that up to save some money there.
Yeah, it's true. You
California.
can do that.
Yeah.
Just be, just be aware. You
Yeah.
probably get away with it. It's probably fine. Just I didn't want to get into that too far, but yeah, we
Yeah.
have to be a little bit creative. So
It's totally legitimate,
Yeah.
but the insurance is another thing. Yeah.
yeah, very good. Thanks for explaining. All right, y'all. Thanks so much, and enjoy your weekend. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining. Appreciate you.
Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
John.
everybody. Thank you, John.
Great call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where we going?